The autumn wind swept through the valley, cold and dry like invisible claws scraping across flesh. At the end of the rough gravel road lay the remote village of Ravens Hollow, nestled beneath the jagged gray Spire Mountains. The peaks were shrouded in mist year-round, hiding secrets no one dared to speak of. The villagers lived quietly, bound to ancient traditions, rising at dawn, tending the fields, never wandering far from home. And above all, they never spoke of the cave on the mountain. They only called it by a simple name, the Echoing Hollow. Legend said that if you stood at the cave's entrance on a moonless night, you would hear your own voice echo back. But if you answered, the darkness would swallow you forever. To the villagers, it was forbidden. To outsiders, just a fairy tale. In a dim tavern on the edge of Ravens Hollow, 4 strangers gathered around a table. Ethan, a journalism student obsessed with unsolved mysteries. Clara, an art student who always carried her camera. Marcus, reckless and eager to prove himself. And Anna, a quiet, timid girl who feared being left behind. Ethan drummed his fingers on his notebook, voice low and urgent. They say if you speak inside the hollow, you'll hear yourself respond. And then, you'll never come back out. Anna gripped her cup tightly. Crazy. Why don't we just explore a normal cave? Marcus smirked, the sound echoing in the nearly empty tavern. It's just a ghost story. We go in, take a few pictures, then leave. Easy. A strange glint lit Clara's eyes. She caressed her camera and whispered, "If it's real, it's worth documenting." Ethan leaned forward, eyes blazing with excitement. Exactly. Imagine it. A story no one dares to tell. Anna sighed. She knew she couldn't stop them. That evening they met old Corbin, a gaunt farmer with deep-set eyes. When the group mentioned the cave, his face turned pale. "Don't go there." His voice raspy like gravel rubbing together. "People have vanished inside." Marcus raised an eyebrow. Vanished or just got lost? Corbin's eyes darkened. Slowly he said, "I've seen someone return." But he was shattered, couldn't speak, couldn't sleep. He trembled just from hearing his own name. The tavern fell silent. Even the wind outside hissed through the cracks, carrying vague whispers. That night in the shabby inn room, the 4 spread out maps and old notes across the wooden table. Ethan read aloud what he had discovered. The hollow's depth was unknown, few had ever entered, and its history was littered with unexplained disappearances. Marcus sneered, his adventurous blood rising. Clara silently checked her camera. Anna sat by the window, eyes fixed on the night. The wind howled, and for a fleeting moment, Anna swore she heard a faint whisper calling. The next morning, the forest path led them to the hollow. The cave yawned before them, like the black mouth of the mountain. From within came a cold, damp breath, smelling of decayed earth mixed with something unnamably foul. Ethan raised his flashlight. The trembling beam swept across jagged rocks like fanged teeth. The cave seemed to grin mockingly at them. Marcus smirked, stepping forward. "So, the adventure only begins when we step inside." One by one, they crossed the threshold. Their footsteps echoed strangely, as if someone else followed closely behind. The daylight behind them shrank and faded completely. The hollow had swallowed them whole. Outside the cave, the wind whistled through the towering pine trees, creating a sound like whispers. Clara, Marcus, Ethan, and Anna stood at the mouth of the massive cave, staring into the vast darkness within. The interior seemed to suck in all light, leaving only a few weak beams from their flashlights. They stepped inside, each footstep echoing off the stone walls. The musty, damp smell made them uneasy, and the cold seeped through their thick clothing. Drops of water fell from the ceiling onto the ground, tapping in a slow, steady rhythm like a heartbeat. Marcus went ahead, forcing a smile. "It's just some rocks. Nothing scary here." But when the flashlight swept across the walls, they noticed ancient carvings etched deep into the stone, circles and strange symbols twisting into one another. Ethan crouched down and lightly touched one, his voice trembling. "This isn't a joke." Anna gripped Clara's hand tightly. She heard a whisper, a soft but clear voice seemingly calling her name. "Anna." She spun around. There was no one there, only the thick darkness and the cold emanating from deep within the cave. Her heart raced, her feet feeling drawn toward the shadowy rocks. Clara felt everything around them start to warp, the space compressing, pushing them further in. They began to realize the cave was more than just a hollow in the rock. Inside lay its own world, filled with mystery and danger. The group pressed on, each step bringing a new fear. Whispers, strange sounds, flickering flashlight beams, all combined to create the feeling that they were being watched by unseen shadows. The four of them pressed deeper into the cave. The space grew tight, with sheer walls nearly brushing their shoulders. Each drop of water falling from the ceiling echoed sharply. Clara felt the cold breath emanating. Marcus tried to reassure everyone, but he too felt the sensation of being watched, the darkness coiling around them like a living entity. They continued on, the flashlight beams flickering over moss-covered walls and ancient carvings. Suddenly, the cave opened into a vast space, its ceiling high and as dark as ink. A sudden gust of icy wind swept through, nearly extinguishing their flashlights. In the shadows, Clara and Anna glimpsed a figure, faint and compressed into the stone. Their hearts seemed to stop. Ethan muttered, "We shouldn't be here." But when they turned back, the entrance appeared to vanish. The cave drew them deeper, and strange sounds echoed around them. Whispers, faint tapping on stone, even footsteps that belonged to no one. The group realized they weren't just lost. They were being watched by an unseen force, guided into the cave's deepest recesses. Fear surged with every step. Each movement became a battle against their minds, the weak light, and the darkness that devoured everything around them. The four of them tried to stay calm, but the cave twisted deeper and more convoluted. The flashlight beams flickered across moss-covered walls, creating strange, shifting shapes. Every step echoed like whispers from beneath the stone, tightening their chests with fear. Ethan suddenly stopped, bending down to see a narrow crack from which faint breathing emerged, as if some creature were hiding inside. Marcus aimed his flashlight closer, but saw nothing clear, only the feeling that the darkness itself was contracting, binding them in place. Clara and Anna continuously heard their names called, echoing from multiple directions. The strange voice, long and drawn out, reverberated through the cave. "Clara! Anna! Come closer. With no way back, the group decided to follow the narrow path ahead. They passed massive boulders, thick with moss and fungi. The eerie sounds grew louder, mixed with tapping, breathing, and strange footsteps that did not match their own. Suddenly, an ancient stone door appeared, half open, with a faint blue light emanating from within. A cold draft swept through, carrying the scent of damp earth and something indescribably foul. Marcus whispered, "Should we open it?" Ethan glanced around, tension etched on his face. "We have no..." The four of them stepped into the deep chamber from Chapter 4, where the flashlight beams were nearly swallowed by the dense darkness. The air was thick and suffocating, a mix of damp mold and earth that made breathing difficult. The whispers from before now rang out more clearly, interwoven with strange sounds, footsteps following them, uneven knocking, and at times faint, chilling laughter. Anna shivered, whispering, We shouldn't be here." Ethan and Marcus tried to calm her, but even they felt the sensation of being watched, as if invisible eyes were tracking every step. Clara led the way, her flashlight illuminating the stone walls. Ancient, cryptic symbols, deeply etched and covered in moss, reflected the dim light, giving the place a surreal and terrifying quality. A few steps further, the group noticed a deep recess in the wall, emanating a colder, bluish light. Ethan grasped Clara's hand, saying, "We have to check it. Maybe it's an exit or some hidden key." As they approached the recess, the darkness seemed to rise, curling around them, and the whispers became thunderous. Anna screamed when a shadow flickered through the hollow, moving swiftly, its shape indistinct but radiating sheer terror and obsession. Marcus shone his flashlight harder into the hollow, but all he could see were tangled moss streaks and broken stones. The whispering had transformed into something unnatural, like multiple voices murmuring at once, calling each of their names. "Ethan, Marcus, Clara, Anna." The group realized they were not only facing physical darkness, but also a supernatural presence that stalked them, overwhelming all reason, seemingly aware of every thought and every step they had taken. Ethan thought to himself, "We have to get out of here. But how when the darkness and those voices are seeping into every step we take?" The group decided to risk stepping into the recess, the cold blue light guiding them, yet each step was a battle against their deepest fears, with the sensation that the darkness clung to every breath they drew. The four of them stepped into the cold, deep recess, the blue light seeping from cracks in the stone, illuminating the jagged walls. The space tightened with every step, each movement making their hearts race faster, and the whispers had now turned into echoing howls. Clara led the way, sweeping her flashlight around as she moved. The cracks on the walls seemed to bend and shift, disorienting them, blurring the line between reality and illusion. Anna lowered her head, whispering, Where are we?" Ethan turned to Marcus, his voice trembling. I don't know anymore, but this feeling, it's like we're trapped in a living maze." Their own footsteps echoed, but mingled with deeper inside that came across an old stone door engraved with tangled symbols, glowing faintly. Marcus pushed it, but a horrific screech rose, like a creature in the darkness protesting. The dim blue light from the crack seemed to beckon them in, yet fear made them hesitate. Clara grasped Anna's hand, saying, "We have no choice. If we stand still, the darkness will consume us." They stepped through the doorway, and immediately the thick darkness wrapped around them, splitting them into small groups. The whispers transformed into distant screams, and they had to navigate through the bizarre maze, where every path carried the sensation of being watched and isolated. Within the maze, they noticed flickering blue lights, seemingly guiding them, but also feeling like bait. Ethan thought to himself, "We have to trust the light. But how do we know it's not a trap set by that entity?" The group gradually realized that the darkness was not merely physical. It was a thinking, manipulative entity, capable of creating illusions to lead them astray. Playing on their fears, they had to combine intellect and courage, overcoming instinctive terror to find a way out. Step by step, the group finally stepped into the heart of the maze, where the stone walls soared to the ceiling, and the faint blue light haloed around, creating a dreamlike shadowy space. The area was far larger than they had imagined, and each step echoed like a growl. Clara held Anna's hand, eyes wide, staring into the dense darkness ahead. Ethan and Marcus stood behind, trying to remain calm, but their hearts pounded, each step feeling like walking on a razor's edge. A long, haunting howl pierced the air, making them flinch. The blue light from the wall cracks split into strange shapes, moving like living creatures. Clara gasped. This is where it keeps us." The dark entity fully appeared, a massive black mass with eyes glowing like embers, the whispers twisting into wind-ripping wails. It moved, and the group felt its weight pressing down, as if being pulled into oblivion. Anna screamed, clinging to Clara, but the darkness touched her hand, sending a shiver of cold and sharp pain through her. Thinking fast, Ethan swung his flashlight up, the piercing blue beam striking the entity, forcing it to recoil bit by bit. Marcus shouted, "Don't stop! Keep moving!" They ran through winding corridors, the flickering blue lights guiding them. Yet the entity still lurked. Clara remembered the old mirror at the entrance and used it to reflect the blue light into the darkness. The entity shrieked, partially collapsing, opening a path to escape. The group dashed out of the maze, standing under the moonlight, gasping for breath. The maze seemed to breathe. Clara whispered, "We made it." Anna nodded, tears streaming down her face. Ethan and Marcus just looked at each other, hearts heavy with both fear and relief. They left the area, and when they glanced back, the maze had vanished into the forest darkness, as if it had never existed. Yet the memory of the voices in the dark haunted them forever.